Hi everyone, welcome back to BAM 479. I am preparing this video to help you uh, develop your second case, case 2, which is part of the second part of your senior project. So you've already had a good start already. You've developed in part 1 your mission and vision evaluation. You've looked at the history of the company, its background, and its critical milestones. You've completed your EFE and IFE matrices and a SWOT analysis. So we're going to add two components now to this particular case. The first is an industry analysis, and the second is you're looking at a competitive analysis, either a SWOT matrix, a SPACE matrix, a BCG matrix, or a grand strategy matrix. So I'm going to start with the industry analysis, looking at Porter's 5 forces model. Now what I'm doing here is I'm taking us into the week 3 lecture topics, and you'll see that there's a link here to the 5 forces model that Porter has put together. And what you're doing in this section is essentially applying this model to analyzing your company. So when we look at Porter's 5 forces model of competition, we see that there are these elements here: the bargaining power of suppliers, the bargaining power of consumers, the potential entry of new competitors, rivalry among competing firms, and the potential development of substitute products. All of these affect how competitive the company is in its industry, and it gives us a sense of the industry environment and how favorable it is at any given time. So rivalry among competing firms, which is the first element here, I think is pretty straightforward to students. You take a look at your company and its key competitors in the industry, and you get a sense of how fierce that competition is, and I'm sure that you would have several things to say about that. The potential entry of new competitors is an interesting consideration. Sometimes this is considered barriers to entry. How hard is it for somebody to open up shop, so to speak? If you are in certain industries, say for instance you are in the health and fitness industry, and you want to open a new gym, the barriers to entry probably aren't that high, because you can open up shop with perhaps getting yourself certified through some education, purchasing some equipment that may not be that hard to afford, leasing a space, and so forth. Now, if you contrast those kind of barriers to entry to, say, for instance, starting an airline, you would see a big contrast. I mean, the capital investment for starting an airline is huge. You'd have to be able to buy aircraft. You'd need to be able to get distribution space or hubs at airports, and so forth. So the logic there sort of comes together when you think about barriers to entry, and you want to think these things through. Obviously, if the barriers are high, those existing companies stand in pretty good shape, stand to be in good shape. Bargaining power of suppliers. When you think about this, you want to know how much power those vendors who supply your inputs of production, how much power do they have? If you have many suppliers and they're all competing for your business, chances are you have the upper hand. However, if there are few suppliers and they have not only your business, your competitor's business, but they serve several industries, perhaps your bargaining power is a lot lower. So you want to think about those considerations. Bargaining power of consumers is another factor. When you say, here's the terms of sale, do they kind of have to accept your conditions, or do they have some influence over that? What is their power of shopping around? This sometimes changes in industries. I think about the automotive industry, for example, and the influence of the internet in being able to compare prices before walking into a dealer or even buying a car online, for instance. Now, the final force in Porter's model is the development of substitute products. And I've saved this for last because this is the element of the model where students sometimes get the most confused. By substitute products here, I'm not talking about competing brands. So if we were a soft drink, for instance, we aren't talking about substituting Coke for Pepsi. What we're talking about is substituting an entirely different product that fills that same customer need. So if we're in the transportation industry, for example, we may take a train versus flying. Or if we're looking at beverages and looking at that example, we may take an energy drink instead of having coffee in the morning. So instead of saying a brand of coffee, whether it's Seattle's Best or Big B or Starbucks or whatever, those are brands. Those aren't substitute products. But if you're going to say coffee versus tea, or if you're going to say coffee versus tea versus an energy drink, those are substitute products. Okay, so that's the first component of the case that you're going to be preparing, and the second is the competitive strategies. Now we have gone through in chapter 6 several matching techniques, and I'm going over here to the lecture notes for chapter 6, and I'm going to mention to you that you are free to look at any of these, to use any of these matching techniques in your analysis. I will say that the SWOT matrix is probably the most commonly used and those that are favored the most by students because they tend to, it tends to be pretty straightforward and intuitive, where you're taking the strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats, and then trying to formulate strategies that take advantage of the company's strengths and opportunities, or overcome the company's weaknesses and takes advantage of the opportunities, or ST strategies where you use strengths to avoid threats, or WT strategies where you minimize weaknesses and avoid the threats. But as I say, in this week 6 lecture and in any of the matching techniques that are covered in chapter 6 and week 6, you are free to use those for the matching techniques section of this paper. So at that point, you are in a position at the close of case 2 of finishing your evaluation of the situation by closing the analysis of the external environment through Porter's 5 forces model, and then finally looking at generating or starting to generate some strategies based on a matching technique. When you move on to case 3, you'll take this even further and go to the point where you select a strategy that you're going to move forward with. So this concludes my presentation of what you need to prepare case 2. I'm looking forward to reading all of your assignments. Thank you.